everybody. This is a different kind of video than what you normally see on my channel. You normally just see some Twitch VODs of some retro games. But today, we're going to do something I think pretty cool. We're going to attempt to backlight mod a Game Boy Pocket. It should be interesting. I have two Game Boy Pockets here. I've already taken them out of their cases. But we've got a gold one and a black one. This black one actually came to me via Fox Die 2286. This was his Game Boy Pocket, and he carried it around. It's missing its little glass lens, but it works otherwise. And this other one I bought on eBay, and it works as well. So we're gonna attempt to backlight mod, make kind of like an ultimate Game Boy Pocket in this silver shell that I got from handheldlegend.com. They're not sponsoring this video, but they're a great local-ish business to me. They do great stuff. They have a bunch of things over there, and that's actually, I got the mod from there as well. We're gonna do an RGB. We're gonna do a backlight mod, and we're gonna attempt a bivert mod. Both of which are fiddly. The bivert mod should be easier in the long run, but basically we're going to backlight a Game Boy Pocket. We're going to bivert it, which is we're going to switch the colors of the screen so that stuff that's white will be black and stuff that's black will be white. So we can get a crisper image out of the Game Boy Pocket. And so this is a difficult mod. There are easier mods where you just replace the whole screen. This is hard because we have to peel the backing off of the screen. We need to do some soldering of the bivert pin. But other than that, bivert chip, not pin, chip, it'll be difficult. I'm excited. We'll try it out. We'll see how it goes. So stay tuned. And so we've had our first casualty. I may have separated the ribbon cable from the bottom of this LCD while I was taking the reflector off, the reflector and polarizer off. Oops-a-daisy. This is what makes this hard, because this is very fragile and it's hard to do because you can't like remove the cable and just get the screen. You got to kind of do it while this is in the way. We have another one just for this reason. We're going to attempt that, and then hopefully everything will go as it's. All right. Second screen went much better. As you can see, we got the backing off. We have that right here, part of it at least. That's a pain in the butt. I'm never doing that again. This is the one time. I hope you enjoyed it. The one time I will peel the backing off a Game Boy Pocket screen. It was the worst. So the next step of the process is cleaning the adhesive that was holding the reflector and the polarizer onto the back of the screen. We just use some rubbing alcohol, 99% isopropyl. Clean that off with a Q-tip. And then we can move on to, after we have the screen assembly in place in the case and the backlight behind it. We can take the wires from the backlight. You can see me here tinning them, which is adding a little bit of solder to your ends to make binding them to their contact points on the board a little bit easier. But what we need to do is we need to connect the positive end of the screen LEDs to the 5-volt, a point of 5 volt on the board somewhere. So we're using this point down here. You can see me here. I'm heating up the pad. I'm adding a little bit of more solder to that point, so that we have more stuff to connect the wire into when the time comes to bind the wire there. And then we also need a ground point, so we're going to use this point here. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm adding a little bit more solder so that we have some material there to bind the wire into. So I cleaned my soldering iron off. I want a nice clean tip. We're going to add some flux to these points as well. Flux basically makes the solder flow a little bit better and want to stick to metal. It helps you avoid bridging any pins and anything like that. So we'll use some tweezers here, take the positive wire, and we're gonna kind of line it up around the side here, and then we're gonna line it up on that point, that 5-volt point, and then we will push the soldering iron down on top of the wire and just kind of let it slowly heat through that blob of solder I placed on the point, and then kind of push the wire into it, thus connecting it. Not hard. We'll do the same thing with the ground wire here. We'll just kind of rest it on top. Once I get everything kind of situated, rest it on top and push it in. Man, I'm really struggling with this. Rest it on top and kind of apply a little bit of pressure and push it down into the blob there to bind it to that point. It's not hard. This is a fairly easy soldering job, all things considered. It's just 2 wires. We did a similar thing on the back of the panel. I don't have a recording of that, but it's a similar process. The next step, so these wires, the best place to kind of run them is in the side of the case here. There's space there. It's out of the way of the buttons. It's kind of out of the way of the rest of the case. It's a tight fit, but it will fit there. So I'm just going to try to thread them into that space. So after we have those soldered and the wires kind of run, we'll go ahead and screw the main board back into the case. There's 3 screws, 1 on either side of the board and then 1 in the middle. These are important to kind of put in because they hold all the buttons in place, and at this point we don't want to have to fiddle with that too much. Make sure those wires are run into the side of the case, like I said before, and then we will go ahead and get the screen connector plugged into the top. It's a delicate ribbon cable, so be careful. You kind of slide it into its little holder there and then push down on the locking pins. Next we can put the back panel on. I basically only ever do like 2 screws, just enough to kind of get it together, put the batteries in, and test it out. Got it here. Backlight works. Bam! 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 It works like a charm. Yeah, it's gorgeous. Gorgeous, I say. So yeah, let's move on to the bivert chip. So the first part of installing the bivert chip is cutting 2 traces on the board running from the Game Boy's processor to the display connector. It's delicate. Use a real X-Acto knife and not just the blade of an X-Acto knife so that you have a better purchase on the cutting tool. Do what I say, not as I do. They're very fine. Just be very careful. Take your time. Slow, careful movements are the key here. Next, after we cut those traces, we're just going to use a multimeter here to check continuity and make sure that we sufficiently cut the lines there, followed by preparing the bivert chip. We'll add some flux to the pads on both top and bottom, and then we'll go ahead and just add some solder, tin them up so that it makes our life a little easier when it comes time to put it on the board. So after we've tinned the pads, we're going to go ahead and take some isopropyl alcohol just to clean the flux off the board, and then we can go about and putting it in place. The wide end is going to sit up against a resistor to draw power. The screen end will sit up against pins 5 and 6, and the processor end will bind to pins 4 and 5. We'll go ahead and flux up the board to help hold it in place. And then we'll put the chip on. We will connect it to the resistor first to hold it in place, and then we will use the soldering iron just to heat up the solder that's be tinned onto those pads for the data stuff, the data lines, to kind of bind it in, and we'll apply some light pressure to the board to bind it in place. So we were somewhat successful today. We went out. We had a couple things we were trying to do to make a refurbished and upgraded mod of a Game Boy Pocket. We did trade out the case to the nice silver one. We've got the nice glass screen lens on here. Everything still works for the most part. Of course, there were casualties. One Game Boy Pocket LCD down. We got the new buttons in. They feel great. The new membranes feel great. And we did manage to backlight the screen. And it is working correctly. Contrast is not great. But that is because that was our first failure of the day. We were not able to successfully bivert this Game Boy Pocket. My fault. I'm not sure what I did wrong. I was having trouble getting it installed. It's a very fine soldering job. But we hit one major snag, which was, of course, we teared those pads off of the bottom of the bivert chip. So that chip is kaput. And those pads are actually still attached to this other Game Boy Pocket. I'll get those off. I do want to try this again. I do want to try and successfully bivert, especially now that the hard part is the screen. Getting that screen, the backing peeled off without damaging that LCD is tough. But we successfully did that, and so this is a success, right? These bivert chips are $4. It's not that upsetting, and worse comes to worse, if we really are struggling that much with these Game Boy Pocket specific ones, we can grab one of the DMG ones and use wires. It's a little bit easier. It's not as fine a soldering job. I do want to try again, but for now I'm happy with this. This will never be my choice as far as what I grab. I do have my retro modding GBA back here. I have looked at the IPS solution, and that might be something we look at in the future. I don't want to use that one because my wife got me that one, but we can look at getting another GBA. They're cheap. And we can replace the screen in it. But the next one that I'm working on, and this is the one I'm really excited about because it will definitely be, I'm just hype. We'll be putting an IPS panel, sorry for hitting the mic, an IPS panel in this Game Boy Color. And so that'll be here on Monday, or a couple days from now. So I hope to have that video put together soon. That one's a much easier mod than this one. I mean, we're replacing the whole screen assembly rather than trying to alter the screen. So it's a much easier mod. I'm excited. I hope you're all excited. I hope you had fun. This is this is my first modding video. I like doing it. I'm going crazy in quarantine, and this is, I was gonna do this stuff anyway. There's a couple things that we might be doing in the future. Region modding a core graphics. If you don't know what a core graphics is, well, stay tuned because I just got a core graphics. And I plan on doing maybe a small review of that. I got, if you go over my Discord, you can actually see the picture. That'll be in the description below this video of the shipment I got from Japan, with a boxed core graphics, a bunch of accessories for it, and and 6 games. And so I've really been enjoying that. That system feels so cute because it's tiny, but it's really cool. If you don't know, it's the Japanese equivalent of the TurboGrafx 16, which you still might not know about because it did not win the console wars. But We might look at a region mod in that. That's a pretty easy mod to do. Just got to flip 2 data lines in the hue card slot, and a switch will control that. There's some other mods. Looking at a GC loader for my GameCube. We might look at doing an RGB mod on the core graphics. We might look at a bunch of stuff like that. So I'm excited. This is a different kind of video than what I normally do. I normally just stream and post VODs on my YouTube channel. So I hope you like this, and I will talk to you all later.